What's counting down up in the sky that people haven't noticed yet? As 2026 just begins, the world isn't running on its usual rhythm anymore. Seas are rising, fire swirls, dark shadows cover the landmarks, strange lights hang silently in the air. Everything happens fast, piling on top of each other, giving nobody time to calm down or explain. The uneasy feeling spreads quicker than the news, and the future suddenly feels so foggy, it's hard to breathe. 10 signs show up like steady knocks on humanity's mind. Cities torn apart by ocean waves, fire twisting into columns in the sky, strange creatures rising from melting ice, weird shapes printed on the clouds, sourceless lights quietly watching the earth. They don't come one by one, they crowd in together, squeezing time shorter, forcing everyone watching to wonder what it all really means. Do you notice the terrifying silence between all those upheavals? The part right ahead is the answer, laying out the pieces so each of us can face what's coming closer. And before we go on, if your heart feels uneasy right now, please leave a prayer in the comments. Tell the Lord you're listening to His warnings. Amen. Now, so you don't have to wait long, let's get right to it. 1. Powerful storm surge hits Letohani, Sicily, Italy. The sea rose up without any warning. Strong winds, high waves, water rushed straight onto the shore in just a few short minutes. Coastal roads disappeared, homes flooded, and everyday order fell apart right in front of everyone's eyes. We don't need to imagine what's happening, just look at the pictures and videos from the scene. Letohani is a small coastal town in Sicily, Italy, with about 2,800 people living right by the Ionian Sea. It's usually a quiet place, known for tourism, seaside restaurants, and narrow streets along the water. But early in 2026, Letohani found itself at the center of an unusually powerful surge. Local reports say waves offshore reached up to 19 feet, about the height of a 2-story building, way beyond what's normal or safe for the area. The seawater poured inland fast, not in little waves, but in one strong, non-stop push. Cars got shoved out of place, outdoor tables and chairs swept away, and several beachfront shops flooded deep in no time. Some main roads were completely cut off, and rescue teams had to pull back because the water was too rough. People panicked and left their homes without much warning, leaving behind floating belongings and damaged streets and buildings. Normal life just stopped. Schools closed, roads shut down, tourism came to a halt. The usual daily sounds were gone, replaced by waves slamming into structures and the strong smell of salt water everywhere in town. In moments like this, the warning in Matthew 24:7 hits home clearer than ever. Nation will rise against nation, and there will be earthquakes in various places. Nature isn't standing apart from these end-time changes, it's part of the shaking. It's not just about physical damage. Fear spread quickly through this small community. Luke 21:25 talks about nations in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. And that's exactly what Letohani is going through right now. The sea, once a source of life, turned into a direct threat, reminding everyone how fragile things really are. Some say this is just extreme weather and climate change at work. But reports from AccuWeather and local sources show this surge was much stronger than past storms in Sicily. Happening at the same time as so many other unusual events around the world, it makes people wonder if there's a deeper meaning. The waves in Letohani didn't just cause flooding, they shattered that long-held sense of safety. When the sea starts coming into homes, the line between normal and not normal gets wiped away. And if this is only the beginning, the question left hanging is, where's next? 2. Smoke tornado in El Lingüe sector, Purén, La Araucanía, Chile. The sky over Purén changed color in just a short time. Thick smoke covered everything. The light got dimmer, and the wind kept shifting directions. There wasn't any big explosion, but right from the first pictures, you could feel something wasn't right. Once the fire on the ground died down, something else started forming up above, slow but clear, and it kept the whole area on edge for a long while. Purén is in the La Araucanía region, southern Chile. It's a rural spot with about 12,000 people, surrounded by forests and farmland. Wildfires aren't unusual here during dry years. But local reports say that after a big fire in the El Lingüe area, the smoke didn't just blow away like normal. Instead, it gathered together and formed a tall, spinning column, hundreds of feet high, that lasted a few minutes before breaking apart. From the ground looking up, the smoke column kept turning steadily, pulling in more smoke and ash from around it. It felt like its own separate spinning shaft, moving on its own apart from everything else. Videos recorded by locals show the smoke and fire mixing together, swirling hard, with a clear whooshing wind sound. In that moment, you see nature not just burning, but moving in ways you can't predict, and it forced local teams to call for temporary evacuations. The event stirred up a lot of debate fast. Some weather experts say this was a fire whirl, caused by temperature differences and local swirling winds during a wildfire. They see it as a rare but explainable physical effect. On the other hand, many folks think the strength and shape of this smoke column went way beyond anything recorded in the area before, especially since it showed up after the main fire had already weakened. Revelation 8-5 paints a heavy picture. The angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. In this setting, fire isn't just a natural accident anymore. It becomes an accusation, putting people face to face with the results of things that have built up for a long time. Fire pouring down from above feels like a judgment. No explanations, no deals. Unease spread quickly as people realized daily life was completely turned upside down. Fields left empty, roads restricted, schools closed for a bit. Luke 21:11 talks about great signs from heaven, and in Purain, the sky became scarier than the ground below. No need for long explanations. Just looking up was enough to feel the worry spreading. You could call this a natural event, or you could see it as a warning sign. But when fire doesn't stay on the ground anymore and stands straight up in the air, that line of safety gets wiped out. If this was just a rare one-time thing, it still leaves a hard truth you can't ignore. And if not, the question still hangs there. When fire starts spinning in the sky, what comes next? 3. The Machias River Monster in Maine, U.S. Late winter on the Machias River isn't loud or dramatic. It's just cold water, slow melting ice, and a long stretch of quiet. Right in that silence, a video popped up that made a lot of folks stop and stare for a good while. Are you sure that thing moving on the water is just drifting ice with no mind of its own? Machias is a small town in Maine, about 2,000 people, folks who live off the river, and traditional fishing. Late in the cold month, as the ice started breaking up, a fisherman caught on video something long, maybe 20 to 30 feet, moving upstream against the current. Posts from I-95 FM and local Facebook pages say the video was shot in clear view, no heavy shaking or editing. In the clip, the thing doesn't just float with the flow. It bends, changes direction, and holds its shape steady even as ice around it keeps cracking. The surface is dull, light gray, not shiny or reflective like regular ice. The movement is slow but steady, like it's under control, and that makes it hard for people to call it natural reflex or accident. Leviticus 11:29-30 says, "These are the unclean crawling things on the land for you." That passage used to separate the familiar creatures from the ones people weren't supposed to touch. The shape rising in the Machias River blurs that line, showing up right as the ice melts away. Plenty of folks try to explain it in natural ways. Some say it's a long chunk of ice pushed backward by swirling water. Others mention plastic trash or a rotten log covered in mud. But those ideas run into trouble when you match them to the steady motion, the way it balances, and the clear changes in direction seen in the video. Revelation 13:1 describes, "I saw a beast rising out of the sea." Nobody's saying for sure this is that creature, but something coming up from cold water, exactly when the ice breaks, sure makes people think of hidden things slowly coming into view. What's really striking isn't just the shape or size, it's the timing. When the ice pulls back, stuff that's been under the water a long time starts showing up. Not everything that surfaces has a quick, clear answer, and not every question gets settled right away. The thing on the Machias River doesn't force anybody to believe, but it does make you think. If it's just a one-time oddity, why does it leave so many questions hanging? And if it's not, how many other things are waiting to show themselves once that last layer of ice is gone? 4. A strange cloud, shaped like a person bowing in prayer. The sky in that moment was very quiet. The cloud stayed still. The light was soft. No strong wind, no unusual sounds. The silence covered everything, and many people just naturally became quiet too, as if the whole place had shifted to a different state. In places like the Philippines and Brazil, this kind of cloud shaped like a kneeling person has shown up again on calm afternoons. Near the Basilica Minore in Naga City, thousands of people looked up at the same time and saw a familiar figure. Weather records show the cloud lasted just a few minutes before it slowly faded away. The cloud clearly showed a lowered head, the body leaning forward, arms spread out like someone praying. The edges weren't sharp, but they were clear enough for the crowd to all see the same shape. Have you ever wondered why so many people saw the exact same figure at the exact same moment? Matthew 24-30 says ahead of time, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn." This Bible verse doesn't describe the exact shape, but it stresses the place and the timing when a sign shows up in the sky and many people see it together. The cloud didn't stand alone like one single cloud. It formed right in the middle of an open sky, with light behind it giving a natural glow, almost like a halo. People who saw it knelt down and prayed, not because anyone told them to, not organized, just on their own. The picture spread fast, almost without needing any explanation. Luke 21:27 says, "Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great power and glory." This part is often seen as a key to understanding signs that appear in the sky, not to pin down the exact time, but to recognize what they mean. From a science view, weather experts talk about pareidolia, the way our brains spot familiar shapes in random patterns. Clouds can form human-like figures when the humidity, temperature, and light line up just right. This explanation comes from how our minds work, and it doesn't judge the spiritual side. Still, the question hangs there when you put the two views side by side. One side says it's just a natural brain reaction. The other side sees a meaningful coincidence, the religious timing, the holy place, and so many people agreeing on what they saw. Which way do you lean when both can be true at the same time? One thing is sure, the sky made people stop, look up, and think. No one has to believe, but it's hard to deny the deep feeling this left behind. When the cloud finally disappeared, the question still stayed in the air. If these shapes in the clouds are only reminders, then what happens when the sky no longer just shows a sign, but becomes something much clearer and more real? 5. Mysterious giants in the clouds. Are the old stories actually true? That afternoon, the New York sky gave no warning. Clouds hung low, the light was cold and gray, and a strange feeling spread as we looked up. In that moment, the familiar busy city suddenly felt unfamiliar. In a crowded neighborhood, one resident caught video of big cloud shapes that looked like faces and human bodies. The clouds seemed to lean down, like something was watching from above. Here we were in a city of 8 million people, yet it didn't feel like we were alone at all. The videos spread fast on Reddit and Instagram. Lots of folks called them giants, hidden in the clouds, hundreds of feet tall, with just heads and shoulders showing. The pictures weren't super clear, but they were enough to make people uneasy and watch them over and over. Genesis 6-4 came up a lot in the comments. In those days, there were giants on the earth. That Bible verse is usually hard to understand, but next to these human-shaped clouds, it got people thinking. The creepy feeling didn't come from the cloud shapes themselves. It came from the way they seemed to look down, The person filming said they felt watched the whole time, even though the clouds weren't moving fast. We might not see it clearly, but the emotion those images stirred up was real. Psalm 34:7 says, "The angel of the Lord camps around those who fear him and delivers them." For some people, this wasn't a threat, it was a protective presence, even if the image looked scary. Online, people split into two clear groups. One side said, "It's just random clouds and city optical tricks." The other side insisted the shapes were too exact to be coincidence, especially since so many saw the same thing. Skeptics talked about high winds and layered storm clouds. Still, even they admitted that being watched feeling is a hard one to shake. We're right on the line between logic and gut instinct. The Bible passages don't describe cloud phenomena directly, but they keep mentioning beings that watch humans from above. When you put those verses next to real pictures, a lot of people see them as hints rather than final answers. One thing's for sure, this made a bunch of people stop, get quiet, and think about where they fit in this huge world. There's no final explanation, just a lot of eyes turned up to the sky. If those shadowy figures are only watching for now, what happens the moment they stop standing still in the clouds? 6. A hidden pathway suddenly opens right up in the sky, and a lot of folks are quietly wondering if that day has finally come. The sky opens up in a rare kind of stillness. No strong wind, no rush or hurry, just slow-moving layers of clouds and a soft light spreading evenly everywhere. In that moment, it feels like time slows down enough for people to look up longer and think a little deeper. Against the pale gray clouds, a perfect round ring of cloud appears so clearly and evenly, it's hard to believe. It looks just like a doorway floating high in the sky, not connected to any mountain or ground below. When this picture spread online, it's easy to see why so many people couldn't look away from their screens. From what people have reported, this kind of thing has shown up in quiet, sparsely populated places, like areas along the Pacific or in Ireland. The cloud rings are hundreds of feet across, lasting only a short time but long enough to leave a strong impression. The shared videos show an almost perfect shape, no distortion, no quick fading. Acts 1-9 comes to mind for a lot of people when they see it. That verse says, "After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight." In the Bible, the cloud doesn't just cover, it becomes the way to another dimension. The pull comes from that unusual peace. No panic, no fear, just a quiet nudge that makes you wonder what you're really seeing. Plenty of folks commented that watching the video left them feeling lighter inside, even if they couldn't explain why. Weather experts give the usual explanation. They say it's a hole punch cloud, or sometimes called a glory, formed when ice crystals get disturbed by air currents, or a plane passing through a thin cloud layer. Scientifically, it's a repeatable physical process. Still, science only describes how it happens. It doesn't really explain why the shape is so perfectly round, or why it shows up in these very calm moments. We can accept the technical answer, but the feeling inside each person is different. Revelation 4:1 often gets mentioned as a kind of key. It says, "After this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven." That open door image matches strangely well with the cloud ring hanging there in front of people's eyes. When you put the two views side by side, one from science, one from the Bible, the line between them gets pretty thin. Science talks about the phenomenon, the Bible talks about what it means. Where do you stand between those two ways of seeing it? No matter which lens you use, that cloud ring still reminds people to look up and think about things beyond everyday life. If the sky really does open quietly like that, the remaining question is who will be the first to recognize what that moment truly means. 7. Strange object from deep space seems to be reaching toward Earth day by day. A bright point showed up outside the usual viewing area. It wasn't loud or flashy, but it made people stop and look. The curiosity started when the first report came from an amateur astronomer in Japan. He said he had spotted an unusual glowing object moving on a strange path. Early reports named it Comet 3I, Atlas, coming from outside our solar system. The released data shows it's miles long and has a tail stretching about 250,000 miles. It's brighter than most comets we've recorded before. That got the science community paying attention right away. When the pictures spread around, zoomed-in videos showed the object giving off uneven light, like it had lots of small bright spots along its body. A lot of folks started asking why a comet would have such a complicated light pattern. It's hard not to feel uneasy watching it move in a way that doesn't follow the usual orbits we're used to. Experts from NASA and Space.com spoke up quickly. They said it's still an interstellar comet, and the brightness increase comes from gases and ice reacting as it gets closer to the Sunday. Even so, they admitted the brightness jumped many times over in a short period, something pretty rare in past observations. Luke 21:25 gets brought up a lot when people talk about strange things in the sky. That verse in Luke chapter 21, verse 25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity." Those words feel very fitting right now, as we face an object coming from unknown space. Uneasiness spread as some side theories popped up. A few people think this isn't just a comet, that maybe it's something disguised, because the path and brightness aren't steady. Those ideas haven't been proven, but they show the common worry we all feel when something is beyond what we understand. Revelation 8:10 has a stronger warning tone. In Revelation chapter 8, verse 10, it says, "A great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch." The picture of a blazing object speeding through space really brings that Bible verse to mind, like a reminder of things that might be coming. Whether you look at it from science or from faith, you can't deny this comet has shaken up how we see things. It makes people look up at the sky with more questions than before and admit that not everything is under our control. If it's just a comet, why does it show up at such an unstable time in the world? And if it's not, the real message behind that light is probably waiting to be revealed in whatever comes next. 8. Ghostly shadows in the sky above the Statue of Liberty. Huge, dark shadows appeared right over the Statue of Liberty. Dark shapes spread across the New York sky for just a few short minutes, enough to scare people. The symbol of freedom was suddenly covered by something nameless, heavy, and cold. Local news reports say it happened in the afternoon on a calm day with no rain or storm. Long shadows, hundreds of feet across, slid slowly through the sky for about 5 minutes before they vanished. Cameras from different angles captured the shadows clearly falling over the area above the bay, right behind the Statue of Liberty. New York is used to bright lights and constant movement, but this time, the whole atmosphere felt noticeably quieter. People stopped, looked up, recorded it, and shared. You can hear the strange silence in those videos. Not just curiosity, but a heavy feeling that's hard to explain. These shadows didn't look like regular clouds. They had sharp edges, moved slowly, and didn't break apart in the wind. Some recordings even show strange dark spots moving alongside them. The gloomy feeling spread fast, especially since it happened right over a symbol most people see as untouchable. Ezekiel 1-4 often comes up and talks about this. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, verse 4, it says, "I looked, and there was a stormy wind coming from the north, a great cloud with flashing fire and brightness all around." In the Bible, that kind of cloud isn't just weather. It's a sign of something intervening. Many people tried to calm everyone down. Some experts said it was probably light reflections or cloud shadows from different layers in the atmosphere. Still, they admitted there wasn't any solid surface that could make such clear, long-lasting shadows under those weather conditions. The arguments didn't ease the unease. On social media, people kept asking what it meant that this happened directly over the Statue of Liberty. Even watching the videos later, you can feel watched, even if you weren't there yourself. Revelation 1-7 carries the tone of a serious warning. In the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 7, it says, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." It's not comforting words. It's a reminder that no one can look away when the sign appears. The symbol of freedom being covered wasn't some random detail. In the Bible, when signs show up in the sky, it's time for people to face their choices and responsibilities. The darkness didn't attack, it just hung there long enough for everyone to see. The shadows eventually faded, the sky went back to normal, but that heavy feeling didn't. If this was a warning, the only question left is where it will show up next, and how much clearer the message will be. 9. Mysterious twin orbs in Punala, Argentina. Right there in the low sky ahead, 2 red orbs suddenly appeared. They just hung, still in the air, like they were waiting to be noticed. The light wasn't blinding, but it was clear enough that you couldn't look away. If it was you, would you have stopped and stared for a long time like we did? Punala is a quiet, sparsely populated rural area in Argentina. It's a place where quite a few UFO reports have popped up here and there on forums like Reddit. From what people shared, these orbs were a few feet across, glowing a steady red and pulsing in the same rhythm. They didn't zoom around or spin, they just floated at the same height, giving everything a strange, out-of-sync feeling with the space around them. When those 2 orbs were there, the air seemed to change. No sound at all, but a faint vibration spread out, like the silence was being pressed down. We stood still, watching in a way that's hard to put into words. All the usual sounds felt pushed far away. Time slowed way down, and nobody in the group said what was on their mind. Joel 2:30 mentioned something like this: "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth." That Bible verse doesn't describe the exact shape or color, but it stresses that signs will appear in the sky, things beyond our normal way of understanding. In that moment, the connection felt really clear. After a few minutes, the 2 orbs started to fade. No sudden speed up, no trail left behind. They just vanished like they'd never been there. The surroundings went back to normal, but that empty feeling lingered. We looked at each other. Nobody tried to explain it. We just stayed quiet for a while. Luke 21:11 says, "There will be great signs in the sky." People often bring up that verse more as a reminder than a full explanation. These strange signs don't always carry a direct message, but they're enough to make you rethink where you stand when faced with things way beyond what we know. Some folks say it was just drones or a rare natural event, but the smooth motion, the total silence, and the way they disappeared so suddenly make those ideas hard to buy. When you really watch closely, it's easy to see something doesn't fit with everyday technology. The 2 orbs are gone from the Punala sky now, but the questions are still hanging around. If this was only the beginning, what might we see next time? And will it still be just 2? 10. Strange fire rain in Oklahoma. Everything happened really fast in Oklahoma, too fast for anyone to get ready. Out of the dark sky, sudden streaks of light came falling one after another, making sharp crackling pops when they hit the ground. The flashes of fire were quick and harsh, enough to make anyone watching step back without thinking. If you saw it with your own eyes, would you just think it was some normal accident? The place this happened is a sparsely populated wooded area in Oklahoma, a spot that's had a lot of hard-to-explain things in the past. From videos and stories spreading on Facebook, hundreds of these fire streaks fell in a short time, scattered all over, not bunched up in one spot. There were no reports of planes, drones, or any military activity nearby. The lights fell like rain, hit the ground, and flared up in an instant. Some made small explosions with a dry, sharp sound that made people close by feel real danger. We could see no power lines, no energy stations, and no spreading fire, but the worry spread fast. Revelation 8-7 described something like this long ago. There came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. The picture of fire falling from the sky isn't given as a symbol. It's shown as a direct act, a judgment. When you put them side by side, the similarity is hard to ignore. Some folks said it might be white phosphorus falling from somewhere, but that idea quickly fell apart. No source, no vehicle involved, and no official explanation ever came out. When there's no physical cause you can point to, the doubt just gets heavier. Ezekiel 38:22 keeps it strong. I will rain down torrents of rain, hailstones, fire, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops. Here, fire isn't just a warning. It's the tool carrying out the sentence. People's role in that passage is simply to face the consequences. The fire streaks in Oklahoma didn't last long, but they left a huge question mark. Are we seeing a rare accident? Or are we right at the end of a series of warnings that have been talked about for thousands of years? If this really is fire from heaven, the question isn't, what is it, anymore. It's, when? And when a bigger fire rain comes, will we still have time to turn around? These 10 phenomena we've seen aren't happening by themselves. They're connecting, like pieces of the same big picture slowly coming into view. From skies changing color, strange lights, shadowy figures in the clouds, to fire falling to the earth, they're showing up more often, closer, and more directly. When you put them all together, it makes you stop and really think about where this world is heading. Matthew 24:6-8 gave an early heads up. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but that's just the beginning of the birth pains. What's written there isn't meant to scare us. It's to help us get our hearts and minds ready for things we can't avoid. As the signs keep growing, staying indifferent becomes a dangerous choice. What stands out is that the Bible doesn't just talk about judgment. It also stresses waking up and turning back. John 3:16 shows another way. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. Even in all this uncertainty, hope is already there for anyone who seeks it. Those 10 signs can leave a lot of people feeling shaken, but they also open a door to take a good look at our own spiritual life. You can call it coincidence, or you can see it as a serious wake-up call to get your faith, your values, and your daily priorities back on track. The choice isn't in the signs themselves, it's in how we respond. Revelation 3:3 puts it plainly. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Hold it fast and repent. This message isn't for the crowd. It speaks straight to each one of us. When time doesn't feel as long as it used to, getting our hearts ready becomes really urgent. If something stirs in your heart right now, feel free to leave a short, honest prayer or thought in the comments below. It doesn't need to be long, just real and from the heart. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so we don't miss any of the messages God is opening up day by day. Finally, thank you so much for staying with me through this whole journey. May the peace of the Lord be with you and your family, keeping you safe through the turbulent days ahead. Amen.
The president is on the South Lawn. He just left a little while ago for Andrews Air Force Base, where he's headed down to Florida to spend the weekend. And now
NATO has been dealing with us on Greenland. We need Greenland for national security very bad.
On Denmark and several other European countries, unless there's a deal to purchase.
Greenland's not for sale!
It comes as thousands march.
Earlier today, we heard from the sheriff in Osceola County.
We get that person notified, we'll make their names available, and we'll also tell you where they're from.
What happens if the world you're living in doesn't have enough time left to fix its mistakes? When the ice up north turns into a hot spot for fighting over, when gunshots ring out in quiet neighborhoods, 2026 isn't just a number on the calendar anymore. It's that uneasy feeling creeping in every single day. Protests explode, alliances break apart, economies get turned into weapons, violence hides for a while, then suddenly shows its face. Everything comes at you fast, too fast for people to really understand what they're seeing. Where do we stand in all of this chain of events? Are we really safe? Before we go any deeper, let's just pause for a second. And if you can, maybe leave a prayer in the comments for all of us in this shaky time. And now, let's get started right away with the first event. The storm of protests in the Arctic. People chant loudly, Greenland is not for sale. Strong winds blow, snow whips across faces, flags shake in the bone-chilling cold. Against the white backdrop of Arctic ice and snow, one chant keeps ringing out: Greenland is not for sale. Watching on screen, we're not just hearing about this, we're seeing a quiet land suddenly become the center of a worldwide showdown. Greenland is the world's largest island, covering about 836,330 square miles, sitting between the North Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean. The capital, Nuuk, has only around 56,000 people, mostly Inuit, but the island's location gives it huge global importance. Greenland is an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, where folks are used to free education, universal healthcare, and a steady welfare system they don't want to give up. Tensions started when ideas about buying or transferring control of Greenland came up. This icy place isn't just snow and rock. It holds huge deposits of rare earth minerals needed for tech and defense. Melting ice in the Arctic is also opening new shipping routes, cutting thousands of miles between Asia and Europe, making Greenland a key spot for military and economic reasons. According to Fox News, protests broke out at the same time in Greenland and Denmark, right after those proposals got mentioned. In Nuuk, thousands braved temperatures below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, marching down main streets with Greenland flags, chanting in Kalaallisut to affirm their sovereignty. The crowd moved toward the consulate area, standing close together in the freezing wind, making it clear they won't back down. In Copenhagen, about 2,200 miles away, even bigger crowds gathered in front of the U.S. Embassy with strong, no-nonsense messages of opposition. Surveys in Greenland show around 85% of people are against any change to the island's sovereignty. The reason is simple. Losing control could mean losing the whole social foundation that supported their communities for generations. In the crowds, traditional songs rise up, not for show, but to declare their identity and deep tie to this land. That scene brings to mind the story in 1 Kings 21-1-3, when Naboth refused to hand over his ancestors' vineyard to King Ahab, no matter the high price offered. "I will not give you my ancestral inheritance." In the Bible, land isn't just property. It's a trust handed down, something money or power can't buy. Today, in Greenland, the land is seen as something worth protecting at all costs, like the promise in Exodus 3-8, where God says, "I have come down to rescue them and bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land." When a place gets targeted for its riches, the natural response from those living there is to stand guard and not compromise. Some say this is just another political fight that'll fade like others before. But in a world already full of tension, the warning in Matthew 24-6 hits home. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed. What's happening shows the strain isn't staying in meeting rooms anymore. It's spilling out onto the streets. The protest storm in Greenland isn't just a quick reaction. It's a sign that land, resources, and sovereignty are becoming new flashpoints in today's world. And if this is only the beginning, how long can this icy place hold strong when bigger waves from the great powers really start crashing in? Tariff threat, a sword hanging over Europe, tensions rising between countries. Those eye-catching headlines and hot news reports have been coming fast and heavy the last few days. A statement out of Washington rocked European markets. The possibility of high tariffs, from double-digit percentages up to nearly 25% of the value of goods, aimed at a group of allied nations. At the same time, political centers in Brussels, Paris, and Copenhagen reacted right away, showing this isn't just market talk or knee-jerk reactions. It's a real signal of rising tension. The background to this move is tied straight to the Arctic. That icy island in the North Atlantic holds a significant share of the Western Hemisphere's rare earth minerals, estimated at more than 1/10 of the world's total reserves, the stuff that powers everything from smartphones to defense systems. Melting ice is opening new shipping routes, cutting thousands of miles off the Asia-Europe journey, and turning the area into a key strategic crossroads that every major power has its eye on. From the White House, the list of countries that could face these tariffs was made clear, including the nation that manages the island, along with several key partners in Northern and Western Europe. The planned tariff levels are high enough to choke already fragile trade after so many shocks, and Europe is signaling it's ready to hit back with measures that would limit American businesses' access to the common market. Experts who've looked into it say the fallout won't stop at the tariff numbers. Supply chains for cars, aviation, and tech could stretch to the breaking point. Fast rising costs would pass straight through to retail prices, hitting consumers and small businesses hard. In that light, it makes you wonder, when the economy gets used as a pressure tool, who pays the price first? In Brussels, EU leaders stressed that decisions belong to the local people, while in Paris, warnings about a chain reaction came with a careful but firm tone. Estimates put potential damage in the billions of dollars if the retaliation spiral grows, and the effects would spread beyond Europe, reaching ports and factories around the world. Online communities have lit up with debate. Some say it's just the usual tough negotiating tactic. Loud at first, then it cools off. Others argue that putting tariffs on something so central to security and resources crosses a line. Where do we lean? Necessary pressure or dangerous spark? Genesis 11:4 tells the story of people banding together to build a tower reaching to the heavens, all to make a name for themselves, and it ended in confusion and scattering. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower, so we won't be scattered over the face of the earth." Ambition to control through collective power led to collapse, a pattern we see when interests get pushed too far. Isaiah 2:4 offers a clear contrast. He will judge between the nations. They will beat their swords into plowshares. When the economy turns into a sword, conflict rises. When it goes back to supporting life, tensions ease. That picture raises questions about the choices being made right now. Revelation 18:17 speaks of how quickly great wealth can vanish. For in 1 hour, such great riches came to nothing. It doesn't talk directly about tariffs or trade, but the warning about how fragile economic structures can be still rings loud, especially when big decisions get made on short notice. The doubts are fair. History is full of trade disputes, and not everyone turned into a crisis. Still, the global scale, the security ties, and the strategic location make this situation stand out, making the warning signs echo louder than before. So the picture shows that human-built empires remain vulnerable to ambition and chain reactions. If these tariffs really get turned on, could global supply chains fall like dominoes, kicking off a bigger economic storm that no one sees coming in time? European troops have landed in Greenland, ready to stand up to the U.S., and possibly sparking a world war. Things are getting tense by the hour. As military flights touch down on that far-off icy land, a feeling of worry is spreading fast, like someone just cracked open a dangerous door. Are we at the point where old alliances start to change colors? Greenland hasn't been just ice and quiet for a long time. The island holds a key U.S. military base way up north, with radar systems watching for missiles around the clock. It's about 700 miles from the capital, Nuuk. NATO has been around for over 70 years to protect each other, but right there, in that freezing spot, the first real cracks inside the alliance are showing up clearly. Some pictures have shocked people watching closely. Civilian planes were hired to fly in German soldiers landing on the icy runway, while British and French forces joined big exercises. Official statements talk about defense and helping allies, but so many European troops showing up in such a sensitive area tells a different story. Security experts are warning this points to a deeper break. When allies have to build shields against their own allies, trust in strategy gets badly worn down. Even if it doesn't turn into armed fighting, this standoff could easily shift into another kind of tough war, one over trade and controlling resources. In Washington, the response came quick. Sending more forces to the island shows suspicion has gone way past normal talk. Right in Congress, heated arguments broke out, with several lawmakers warning that any step too far could push the whole alliance into a crisis like nothing before. The effects of this tension don't stay just on military maps. When big powers start doubting each other, global supply chains get shaky, energy and food prices swing wildly, and everyday life for millions of families feels unsteady. The near future looks like more questions than answers. Matthew 24-7 paints a picture worth thinking about. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. When armies from countries that once stood side by side now face off on different sides, those words sound like an explanation for the chaos taking shape. Daniel 2:41-43 talks about a kingdom that's partly strong and partly weak, like iron mixed with clay. Just as you saw the feet and toes partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, so this kingdom will be divided. That image fits perfectly. A structure that looks solid on the outside, but has lost its real bond inside, just waiting for a big enough shake. A lot of folks say this is only routine military training, and NATO has gotten through disagreements before. But analysts point out the big difference. This one ties straight to land and resources, things that can push decisions beyond calm thinking. Revelation 16:16 mentions kings of the earth gathering at a key moment. They gathered the kings together at the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Not every event leads straight to the final end, but when tension, distrust, and military power all come together like this, it's a signal we can't ignore. Everything happening right now shows international relations have entered their most fragile stage in decades. If today's defensive shields turn into tomorrow's lines of confrontation, will the old order hold, or will something completely new rise up from these very cracks? The triple murder case that shocked everyone. Darkness lurking in Florida. The chill that morning in Osceola County wasn't from the weather. It came from the heavy silence hanging over a quiet neighborhood that usually moves at a slow, easy pace. On the dew-covered grass, 3 bodies lay face down. No signs they fought back. No screams for help. No mess. Just the awful feeling that something terrible had been building quietly in the shadows. Osceola County sits right in the middle of Florida, about 20 miles south of Orlando, with around 400,000 people. It's a mix of rural areas and city edges, where small roads lead out to big highways, and the peacefulness often hides what's really going on underneath. For years, Florida has been seen as an easy spot for cross-border crime networks because it's so close to the Caribbean and has major ports like Miami and Tampa. CNN reported that all 3 victims were men, shot at close range with bullets right to the chest and head. Police called the scene eerily clean, no robbery signs, no struggle. The suspect, Kevin K2 Marlowe, 29 years old, was arrested later without putting up any fight, almost like he knew the moment was coming. A search of Marlowe's place in Gainesville, about 100 miles from Osceola, uncovered something even more chilling. Under the floor, investigators found a black notebook with 29 names written in it. 22 of them had been crossed out. When they checked the records, those names matched deaths that had been ruled accidents or listed as missing persons over the past 4 years. Records show Marlowe spent time operating and getting training in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, places well known for gang violence. Authorities suspect he's tied, directly or indirectly, to at least 43 killings, many of which were never connected before. We're seeing a picture come together now, piece by piece, only after enough people have died. What happened in Florida isn't just one isolated crime. It shows how violence can hide right in the middle of communities that seem perfectly safe, quiet, organized, and cold. When a death list is already written out, human lives turn into numbers, and fear creeps into everyday life in a very real way. Genesis 18:20 records God's heavy judgment. The Lord said to Abraham, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous. It's a cry rising not from one single wrong, but from many hidden evils piling up just like those names quietly stacking in that black notebook. Psalm 64:2-3 exposes the nature of that darkness. Hide me from the conspiracy of the wicked, from the plots of evildoers. They sharpen their tongues like swords and aim cruel words like deadly arrows. That crossed-out list is no different from arrows already fired, precise and without mercy. Ephesians 5:11 gives a clear warning. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. When evil comes to light, the Bible doesn't just offer comfort. It acts like an indictment, pointing straight at the corruption and silent complicity that let the darkness go on too long. Some say this is just a local case and shouldn't be given bigger meaning. But when the trail stretches over years and across countries, the line between local and global fades away. What's buried eventually comes up, and the price is usually human lives. The case in Osceola County is a cold reminder that darkness doesn't need noise to spread. As long as names are still left uncrossed and similar networks keep operating, the most haunting question isn't that this happened. It's how many more times it could happen in the very places we once thought were safe. The cartel network, a hidden empire, comes crashing down. The raids happened almost at the same time. Warehouse doors busted open, tunnels exposed, and names that seemed untouchable suddenly in handcuffs. In just a few hours, a secret empire that had lasted for years started falling apart. We're watching one of those rare moments when justice moves faster than the darkness. Florida's long coastline, about 1,350 miles, has long been seen as the main doorway for smuggling routes coming up from Mexico into the U.S. interior. Gainesville in North Florida and the Miami ports became key hubs for the CJNG cartel and the La Cruz de Sangre network. Reports say the whole system ran like a full business, with branches for money, logistics, protection, and even political cover. The investigation exploded when federal agents raided the home of Gainesville's mayor, Jonathan Reed. Under his house, they found a tunnel about 220 feet long, leading straight to a storage spot with 3.4 tons of drugs marked CJNG, plus records on human trafficking and a whole camera surveillance setup. Financial records showed Reed had sent at least $3 million to Kevin Marlowe, creating a direct link between local government and the cartel. The operation, called Operation Breakpoint, quickly spread out. 11 warehouses in Tampa, Jacksonville, and Miami got hit at the same time. Agents seized 113 guns, rescued 128 people who were being held, and arrested 74 suspects. Down in Naples, the beachfront villa of Miguel El Padre Zamora, the leader of La Cruz de Sangre, turned into a hotspot after a short shootout before he was taken alive. These cold, hard numbers show the cartel wasn't just a gang. It was a whole parallel system running alongside normal society. As layer after layer of protection gets peeled away, the question isn't whether they existed anymore. It's how deeply they've dug into everyday life that we still think is normal. Revelation 18:2 paints a picture we recognize. It has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird. An empire built on violence and dirty money finally shows its true face, just like those hidden storage spots and tunnels getting exposed under the cover of power. Jeremiah 17:11 explains the nature of crooked wealth. Like a partridge that hatches eggs it did not lay, so are those who get rich by unjust means. In the middle of their lives, their riches will leave them, and in the end, they will be fools. The money laundered through banks, the clever bribes, they couldn't save the whole system from collapsing in the end. Romans 13:12 draws a clear line between darkness and light. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. When these arrests happen out in the open, the Bible stops being a distant metaphor. It becomes the key to understanding why structures that looked so solid could fall apart so fast. Security experts call this a major tactical win. It cuts off an important branch of the cartel in Florida. From that view, the collapse came from better surveillance tech, good federal teamwork, and mistakes inside the criminal group. Some religious scholars see a bigger picture, where empires built on sin always carry the seeds of their own destruction and just wait for the right moment to be exposed. Both views exist side by side, one based on system analysis, the other on moral meaning and spiritual warnings. What do you think? Is this just a solid investigative success, or a sign that things hidden too long eventually have to pay the price? The exposure of the La Cruz de Sangre and CJNG networks shows no darkness is completely safe forever. With their operations already spreading into Georgia and Texas, the story doesn't end in Florida. If one hidden empire has fallen, are others quietly shaking right now, waiting for the next wave to bring them into the light? A complex, sophisticated corruption system hidden deep inside Florida cities. The documents were sent to the right agencies, followed the right procedures, and went to the right people in charge. But after that point, everything just stopped. No updates, no decisions, no progress. Have you ever wondered why the most serious cases so often disappear quietly like that? Florida runs on a layered justice system, divided by counties, with power spread out and a tight web of local banks all connected. Osceola and Gainesville are just two rare spots where the investigation spotlight actually hit, but behind them is a much bigger structure, where crime networks find their way through bribes and quiet deals. The papers seized in the raids paint a much darker picture than anyone first guessed. A front company called Ocean Trail Logistics laundered about $82 million through more than 400 legitimate shipments, hiding drugs inside food containers and building materials. The system ran for years without being touched, not because it was so clever, but because nobody wanted to touch it. The hit list they found had a double approval process, and 7 names still haven't been crossed off. An insider witness said death records were altered, investigations were deliberately dragged out, and key reports were forgotten in drawers. Money was broken into small amounts below the mandatory reporting limit, flowing through local banks like water soaking into sand. The heavy feeling doesn't just come from the facts. It's from the question hanging in the air. How many people knew, and how many chose not to know? When the truth can be held up with just one signature, justice starts feeling more fragile than ever. Online, the arguments are exploding. Some folks say it's only a few bad apples in the system, and we shouldn't lose faith in the whole thing because of that. Others push back hard, saying the real problem is the systematic cover-up, and staying silent for so long has turned wrong into normal. Some ask if exposing too much will make society more unstable, or if keeping quiet is the way to protect order. Others say any order built on hiding things is just a thin coat of paint. It'll peel off sooner or later. These debates show the real divide in the community. It's not about not having enough information. It's about how much truth people are willing to accept. Amos 5:12 lays it out plain. For I know how many are your transgressions, and how great are your sins, you who afflict the righteous, who take a bribe, and who turn aside the needy in the gate. Those words hit like a judgment on any system where money decides justice. Psalm 94:20 asks straight out, can wicked rulers be allied with you, those who frame injustice by statute? When the law gets twisted to serve hidden interests, the very structure meant to protect society becomes the tool that harms it, and silence stops being neutral. 2 Timothy 3:1-2 keeps showing what chaotic times look like. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant. The Bible doesn't describe one specific case in detail, but it draws a familiar pattern of a society where personal gain pushes aside shared responsibility. Some skeptical voices say this kind of corruption exists everywhere, so we shouldn't make a big deal out of it. But when the same patterns keep showing up at different levels and in different places, it's no longer just an isolated thing. Those old warnings suddenly feel uncomfortably close. What got exposed in Florida isn't just the story of one state or one moment in time. It's a reminder that when silence becomes the habit, the darkness doesn't even need to hide anymore. And if what came out is only the tip of the iceberg, what's still being kept quiet in the places that have never been shown on? The chaos in 2026 looks a lot like a Bible picture that people guessed long ago, showing that God was right all along. When you put everything that's happened side by side, the loose pieces start fitting together into one big picture. From freezing Greenland to sunny Florida, from streets in Europe to US, seaports, none of these things stand alone. Borders and control are being tested, money and trade are used as weapons, old allies don't trust each other anymore. Crime hides behind a legal cover, and justice gets dragged out by hidden hands. Looking at the whole thing, does this really feel like just random chance to you? In Greenland, protests in Nuuk and Copenhagen show real worry about land and self-rule, while big powers' plans turn this key island into a major tension point. At the same time, tariff threats from Washington shake Brussels and Paris, making European leaders rethink what's best for them. When European troops show up in Greenland, the cracks in NATO start showing up clearly in Berlin and London, proving the alliance we once thought was rock solid isn't so solid anymore. This whole scene brings to mind the warning in Matthew 24-21-22. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. The trouble isn't just politics. It's a sign of a much deeper time of testing. Across the Atlantic, a murder case in Osceola County uncovers a whole network of cartels running from Gainesville to Miami. Long tunnels, tons of drugs, money washed through local banks, and years of silence from the system show that violence and corruption aren't just one-off problems. When these hidden empires collapse, they expose something even heavier, people going along with it because of money and apathy. This lines up with Amos 5:12, where the Bible says straight out, "For I know how many are your transgressions, and how great are your sins, you who afflict the righteous, who take a bribe, and turn aside the needy in the gate." When laws get bent and truth gets buried, it's not just a local issue anymore. It's a sign of decay spreading far and wide. Looking back at those 6 things we've talked about, the real connection isn't places or politics. It's human nature. Greed, fear, and the hunger for control have pulled systems way off their original path. What's going on in 2026 shows a world stuck in constant strain. Every choice sets off a chain reaction, and every bit of silence carries meaning. This echoes the words in 2 Timothy 3:1-2. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant. The Bible picture isn't just about some distant future. It's shining a light right on what we're living through now. Still, the Bible doesn't leave us with only warnings. Right in the middle of the mess, there's a promise of something new. Revelation 21:1 gives a different view. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. The bigger picture doesn't end in ruin. It ends with things being set right again, where justice and hope come back. When we put 2026 into that bigger picture, the message gets clearer. These shakeups aren't just to scare us, they're meant to wake us up. They remind us not to put all our trust in shaky systems, but in something stronger than them. In a world full of trouble, faith becomes the steady point that helps us see past what's falling apart. The picture is already here, both in what's real and in Scripture. The only question left isn't whether the chaos will keep going, it's where each of us will choose to stand as the picture keeps coming together. Looking back over this whole journey, events that seemed scattered have come together into one clear stream. From geopolitical tension in Greenland, cracks between allies, to violence, cartels, and corruption being exposed in Florida, everything points to a world that's been running in a long state of unrest. It's not just separate incidents. It's a repeating pattern, power being challenged, morals wearing thin, and truth coming out in ways no one can ignore anymore. When you put this picture next to the bigger picture in the Bible, it's not strange at all. In Matthew 24:6-8, Jesus said plainly, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But all these are the beginning of birth pains." What's happening isn't meant to scare us into panic. It's a warning that the world isn't standing on the solid ground we once thought. In the middle of all this, the call isn't to be afraid. It's to wake up. Ephesians 5:14 reminds us, "Wake up, O sleeper. Rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." Being awake doesn't just mean spotting the signs of the times. It means looking at your own life and asking what's really at the center: power, money, or faith in the Lord. This is also a moment to slow down and pray, not out of fear about tomorrow, but asking to be guided and to hold on to faith in the middle of the mess. Philippians 4:6-7 puts it clearly, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts and your minds." That peace doesn't come from calm circumstances. It comes from a strong relationship with Him. If there's a prayer on your heart right now, a thought, or something weighing on you, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Even a short prayer or an honest line of reflection is enough to remind us we're not walking this road alone. Faith grows when we share it, and being awake spreads when someone has the courage to speak up. If these words touch you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future reminders. Every share isn't just support. It's a way to let the light reach farther in a world full of shadows. Finally, thank you so much for staying with me until this moment. May the Lord give His peace to us and our families, guard our minds, protect us in every situation, and guide each step ahead. Amen.
The time now is 11:42. I'm Megan Fee back at the WKRN.com alert desk following some break.
Yeah, so I felt God speaking to me, and you know.
What's really going on with this world, when in just a short time, all the familiar order keeps collapsing right in front of us? The feeling of unease spreads faster than the news. Time feels squeezed short, and the future suddenly becomes a big question mark hanging there. From huge accidents in ice and snow, uprisings against control, stories from people who crossed the line between life and death, to massive explosions, strange sounds from the sky, odd things on the moon, glowing cloud swirls, hard to explain cloud formations, and shocking images from high up. 10 phenomena coming one after another, not scattered, impossible to ignore. We'll keep going to face the answers, still waiting ahead for ourselves. If a prayer rises up in your heart, leave it in the comments as an act of faith in the middle of all this uncertainty. And now, we're going to start right with 1. Big pileup crash on Michigan Interstate. A huge chain reaction crash happened on Interstate 196 inches, Michigan, when a fierce snowstorm hit the Hudsonville area in Ottawa County. It turned that main highway into total chaos with no way out. News came in fast over just a few hours, and you could tell right away this wasn't just another traffic report. It was one of those moments when everything spins out of control. Michigan folks are used to tough winters, but that morning, the road was covered in ice and snow, and you could barely see a thing. On the stretch connecting Grand Rapids to nearby areas, cars and trucks started sliding, spinning, and slamming into each other in seconds. Hundreds of people, long-haul truck drivers, families on the road, got caught up in this freezing mess caused by nature gone wild. Matthew 24:7-8 talks about stuff like this in the world. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. From up above, drone footage showed a sight that takes your breath away. More than 100 vehicles, including over 30 big heavy trucks, piled up over several miles, with white smoke and cold vapor rising from the twisted metal. At least 9 to 12 people got hurt and were taken to nearby hospitals like Spectrum Health Zeeland Community Hospital. According to Fox News, the whiteout conditions dropped visibility to almost zero, so drivers couldn't react at all, turning about 5 miles of the highway into a real icy trap. Luke 21:11 describes times like these too. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. Some say it's just an accident from extreme weather, something that happens every winter. But weather experts confirmed the snow amount and storm strength here were way above average for many years, showing how nature's getting more unstable. When things like this keep happening so often, they don't stay separate anymore. They start feeling like a quiet string of warnings. So this crash on the Michigan highway doesn't just show how fragile we are against nature. It also hints at something deeper, about the growing disorders spreading around. If this is only the start of a bigger chain of events, what's coming next is still unknown, and it makes us keep our eyes open. We can't look away. 2. The uprising against digital ID in London, seen as the awakening of young people. The scenes aren't some calm parade. It's a huge crowd surging through central London, flags and signs held high, chants echoing off the old buildings like waves crashing on rocks. People are packed in tight, moving fast, eyes intense. It's chaos tearing through the usual city order. Right in the middle of that flow, messages against digital ID are everywhere, spreading like wildfire. Handmade signs, loud group shouts, raised fists. It's real pressure on the government. You can feel the uneasy heartbeat of a generation scared they'll be tracked every step under the excuse of protection. The heart of this wave is around Broadcasting House, where young people are gathering to push back against the bill tied to kids' welfare and schools. Streets heading to Whitehall fill up fast, traffic stops dead. Police put up soft barriers to avoid direct clashes, but tension keeps rising. Videos spreading online show shoving, police sirens cutting through chants, and a thick atmosphere full of conflict. Some see digital ID as the hard line for personal freedom. Others think it's a needed step to keep kids safe online. The clash of views turns the streets into a heated debate. The argument quickly grows bigger than the protest itself. Supporters stress safety. The tech can cut crime and help protect vulnerable people. Opponents warn about widespread surveillance, data misuse, and dangerous precedents for privacy. Both sides argue harder and harder, but they all claim to be protecting society's future. In all this, the Bible comes up a lot as a warning. Revelation 13:16-17 says, "It also forces all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." Those old words echo in our digital age, making fears of total control feel even stronger. And it doesn't stop there. 2 Timothy 3:1-5 gets quoted too, like a mirror to today. In the last days, there will be terrible times when people chase self-interest, power, and pleasure, ignoring core values. These verses ring like an alarm bell amid the tech wave. In the end, even if the government tweaks or pauses the plan, the echo of this uprising still hangs over London. Tech keeps moving forward. The debate has no end in sight, and the warning rings clearer than ever. Waking up isn't just on the streets. It's in how we all choose humanity's future. 3. Billy Garaffa's story of